I was working with this client, this guy who was having, kind of a hard time of it. He was feeling blocked. He wanted to write, but he wasn't enjoying the writing process really at that point. And so he had kind of become disconnected from why he was doing it. But he still knew he wanted to do it, but he would kind of lost track of it. And so in the course of our conversation, he turned to me and he said, Bill, how come you do this? And he was referring to the coaching. Why do you do this? Like, you've had success as a writer. Why do this? And interesting question. I said, well, thanks. And well, I do it part for the money. Obviously, the coaching helps pay the bills, but that's not the reason I do it. The reason I do it is because I love the conversations. I love what the conversations ask of me. I they always leave me feeling wiser and more inspired and more interested. I like it. And I thought of that because you could ask the same question about this podcast. Like, why am I doing it? And there's sort of, practical reasons. It builds my brand. I reach a lot of people this way. It's another way for people to find me. But that's not why I do it. Like, I can't do anything for those reasons. I couldn't coach if it was just for the money. That's not enough of a motivation for me. And I can't do this podcast just to build my brand. That itself is not enough of a motivation. And I was reminded of when I started writing essays for Author Magazine, and I was doing one a day. I may have mentioned on this podcast, they were 400 words, and I was doing one a day, 5 days a week for a bunch of years. And when I wrote them, I didn't think anybody was reading them, or I knew someone was reading them, but I didn't think a lot of people were, but I was really enjoying writing them, when I say I enjoy it, I mean that I would write them and they were always meant to be uplifting. They're always meant to inspire people, leave people feeling energized about their work and remembering why they do their work. And so that was the goal of them. And invariably, when I would write them, I would feel better after writing them than I did before I wrote them. And not because I had some sort of feeling of triumph, like, oh, I did another one, or, ooh, that was a really good essay. Aren't I a good writer? No, it had nothing to do with my ego. It actually just left me feeling better the way I do after I read a book I really enjoy or watching a show I like. It left me feeling the way I wanted to feel. And that's true of this podcast. It's a teaching podcast, you might say, but I often need to hear the very things I'm sharing with you. I don't know what it is. I wish I fully understood, but there's one thing to sit around trying to lift my own spirits if I'm feeling down. But then there's something just sort of pacing around talking to myself, but it doesn't really work. But as soon as I turn my attention to someone, even someone not in front of me at the moment, and begin talking about the subject as if I'm uplifting them, I invariably go up there too. It takes me up. There's something about sharing our perspective with others that helps us. And that's why I do it ultimately. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't do any of this. I wouldn't write songs. I wouldn't write stories. I wouldn't coach. It leaves me feeling better than I did before I started. It gives me what I need. I learn what I need to learn, but I'm taken where I want to be taken. And so really, as you think about why am I doing this? Why am I writing? Why am I know you may be asked that question. The answer is how it leaves you feeling while you're doing it. And what you are sharing should be what you want to be shared, what you want shared with you. In other words, if you love romance, then you are sharing a story of romance because you love it when people tell you stories of romance. And when you tell a story of romance, you're taken to that same place, whether it's romance or science fiction or thrillers or memoir or literary fiction or poetry. It doesn't matter. You get what you're giving others. You get what you're giving others. And you have to. Because you can't give something if you don't have it, can you? No, you can't. You can't give the story unless you have it. And so whatever you're giving to people, you get first. It comes to you first and you receive it. Isn't that great? And then you give it to them. And that's what you are. That is the transmission. Comes to you and then out. Comes to you and then out. So if you're ever wondering, why am I doing it? Don't look at money. I don't think it's going to help. Don't look at acclaim. Don't look at success or recognition. I know that stuff. I get it. But that's not it. You're doing it. I think we all do it for the same reason, because we get to receive and then give, receive and then give. And what a great deal that is. Yeah. I know it can be hard sometimes to wonder why you're doing it. I know. Again, that's why I do these podcasts. So if you find that there's a hard part of writing that you want to share with me, please let me know. I want to hear about it. And if you don't want to miss another dose of inspiration, hit subscribe or hit like too, for that matter. Helps people find it. And I like to hear from you. Yes, I do. So until next week, this is Bill Kenower. Stay fearless.